Hi guys, welcome back to Mull. Today's message from Mull leads on from the last one that I did, which was based around a potential return to Atlantis Leisure Centre, which is now opened. And Healthy Options will be starting to work with current clients as of next week, which is a great step in the right direction for us. I think it's important though that we have a little look at some of the recent headlines that we're getting in the media. And the reason being that I've been talking to quite a few of our clients, and there is an obvious hesitation and anxiety about returning to places like Atlantis, even for many going back to shopping centres, even leaving the house for some. And that's totally understandable in light of what we've been through. Totally unprecedented times. And what I have to be very careful about here is this is a delicate subject, and all I want to do is offer up some recent data and some data that you may find is a little hidden and isn't always offered up in the media because it doesn't quite grab the same headlines as a recent upturn in cases. We all know that bad news sells better, and I think it's really important that we have a balanced look at what's actually happening across the UK in terms of the stats and why we may be seeing some of these upturns in positive cases of coronavirus. So there appears to have been a bit of a repressing of the panic button at quite a key time. And I've just heard today that England has changed its policy. Only 6 people can now meet again. And we'll see Scotland may follow as well. But important that we look at those little charts that you keep seeing on the evening news. So you will see a chart showing the new cases for the day, and you'll also see a chart for the unfortunate deaths of the day. You may have noticed that the death rate has maintained pretty low for some time now. There was a little upturn in the last few days, but for a long time it was staying quite low. The number of new cases has started to increase on that chart. And if you look at the chart, when you go back to the peak, which was suggested was in April time, we had a daily number of 6,000 cases, in some cases over 6,000 cases per day. The London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine suggests that that number was vastly underestimated, and they think that it's more likely to have been over 100,000 cases per day. So why weren't we getting those figures? Well, if you think back, we didn't have the same testing capabilities. So at that time, we were only really testing in hospital environments and not in the community. So we were probably only getting around 5% of the real figure for the amount of new cases every day. So the key here is that although we're seeing an upturn in new cases, and we've gone over 2,000 for a few days now, compared to the peak and the real peak, not what's being shown in this chart, it's still quite low. It's not to be underestimated, please don't get me wrong, but compare it to 100,000, not 6,000, as you're being shown in the media. We now have much more testing going on in the local community. So when mass testing came in about mid-May, there's been more and more capacity. We've had more lab capacity as well to get the tests processed. So again, we can look a lot more closely into our communities now, and we can really focus on hotspots. So areas like Bolton, Manchester, where we're seeing a rise in cases. The government has over 100 mobile units which they can really focus into those areas. And if you think about it, if you do that, the likelihood is that you're going to get many more positive cases showing up. And we need to bear that in mind because that testing strategy is changing all the time as these mobile units move to various hotspots. So we're likely to get more positive cases. And actually, in the past week, a quarter of all the new positive cases have come from just 20 local authority areas. Now that's only 5% of the local authority areas within the UK. So a quarter of the cases are coming from just 5% of the area. Now again, I'm not underplaying it. There's still another 3/4 of those positive cases coming from the rest of the UK. And we do know that not too far from here, Glasgow, we have had a recent spike in cases. And it's important that we keep an eye on that, but it's also important that we look into the reasons why. We're testing a lot more. The hospital admissions are not showing a corresponding increase to this increase in cases. There's two theories there. One is that we're doing a lot more testing in the community, so we're uncovering a lot more mild cases. And two, a lot more younger folks seem to be picking up the infection recently, and their symptoms tend to be not severe. So the hospital admissions are remaining very low. Now, talking of young people, this is where the majority of the increase in cases seems to be lying. So when you look at the 40 to 79 age bracket, in terms of new positive cases, there's not been much change. The significant increase has come from the 20 to 39 age bracket. Now, I think it's a bit lazy to just label younger folks inconsiderate and just wanting to go out and socialise and be with their friends. There could be other reasons behind that. Certainly socialising will be one of those reasons, and we've all seen the media stories about people on beaches and people in pubs, and I'm not saying that that's not a factor. But young folks tend to share housing more. They tend to, they'll be pulled back to their jobs probably sooner, and a lot of them have more public facing jobs, so the risk of infection is higher. We need to bear that in mind as well. And they're less likely to get ill, so we're not seeing the corresponding rise in hospital admissions. So I think it's important that we weigh all these things up. Again, I'm not downplaying the severity of this disease. We've never faced anything like it, but I'd like everyone to be a little better informed when looking at some of these figures that we get on the national news. And another little thing I'll just leave you with, because we often get the death rate, and for some time now it's been in the single digits. I know recently we had a day where it went 30 plus, and we need to keep an eye on that, very obviously. But if you're looking at single digits for coronavirus across the UK, the amount of people that die in road traffic accidents every day, about 4 to 5 across the UK. The amount of people who die in the UK from cancer every day, about 450. The amount of people who die from heart disease related illness, about 120 every day. And the amount of people who die from diabetes related illness, about 70 every day. Now, again, I mentioned it before, we could be storing up a bit of a tsunami of diabetes, heart disease and cancer, undiagnosed, untreated. If we don't start to look at our activity rates and our nutritional intake and get some of the programs like Healthy Options Run back into operation. And I think that's a really important message to get across, is that the number of deaths from COVID is starting to sit well below any of these other diseases and illnesses which aren't going away. They've been there for a long time. There's going to be no vaccine, and we need to just balance things up and keep things in perspective. So I'm going to leave that with you there. And again, just a final message. I am not saying you must come back to Atlantis, you must leave the house, you must get out. I just think it's important that you get as much information as possible, and maybe go away and do a little bit of research yourself. Don't just listen to the headlines on the news, because they're often the attention grabbing stuff, and as I said, bad news sells. So look after yourselves, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you soon at Atlantis. Bye-bye.